Hey Wanzi. I've been a long-time fan of your videos, and now I finally have a story worth sharing. This one isn't about me personally, it actually happened to a classmate back when I was in year 9. I'll do my best to recount it just the way it was told to me. For the sake of privacy, let's call him Andrew. It all began at the end of an otherwise ordinary school day. Like most students at our school, Andrew usually took public transport to get home, sometimes a bus, other times a tram or train. He was tall, well-built, and carried himself with a quiet confidence. Being Asian and effortlessly charismatic, Andrew was one of the more popular kids around. After school, Andrew usually spent time hanging out with friends or going on dates. But that day was different. He chose to head straight home with his younger brother, a year 7 student we'll call Ben. When they boarded the bus, Andrew took a seat near the back, while Ben made his way to the very last row to join his group of friends. Everything felt routine, until the next stop. That's when he stepped on. A tall, heavy-set boy, probably around 16 or 17, climbed onto the bus. He towered over everyone, his presence immediately unsettling. A long, jagged scar stretched down the side of his face, and he wasn't wearing a school uniform, which meant he wasn't from our school. As he boarded, he mumbled to himself under his breath, pacing the aisle slowly, as if he couldn't quite decide where to sit, or who to sit near. At first, Andrew didn't think much of it. He kept his head down, eyes focused on his phone, tuning everything out. But as the boy made his way down the aisle, he suddenly dropped into the seat right next to Andrew, and without a word, launched a fist straight at his head. The punch landed hard. Stunned, Andrew reeled from the hit, but it only took a second for the shock to wear off. He sprang up, furious, ready to fight back. But before he could do anything, the boy just turned around and stormed toward the back of the bus where Ben and his friends were sitting. I should probably mention Ben was short, quiet, and definitely not someone who could defend himself in a fight. The boy tried to hit Ben, but just before he could land a punch, an elderly woman sitting near the front of the bus shouted at him, demanding he stop. He turned furious and punched the woman in the face. At this point, the bus was in total chaos. Andrew was frozen, trying to make sense of what was happening. This guy had to be mentally unstable. That was the only explanation, but it wasn't over. The boy made his way toward the bus driver, fists clenched, and tried to hit him while he was driving. That nearly caused a full-on crash. Thankfully, at the next stop, 2 security guards who had been contacted by the driver during all the commotion were already waiting. They stepped onto the bus and blocked the aisle, trying to calm the boy down. It turned out to be a big mistake. The moment he saw them, the boy snapped again, swinging wildly at both guards. A full-on brawl broke out right there in the aisle. The guards managed to wrestle him to the floor and held him down while the rest of the passengers, including Andrew, Ben, and the driver, evacuated the bus. A few minutes later, the police arrived. You'd think he'd calm down at this point, seeing armed officers, but no, he didn't care. As soon as one of the guards loosened their grip, the boy lunged at one of the cops, and that's when it ended. Another officer immediately pulled out a taser and fired. The boy collapsed, convulsing on the pavement before being restrained and cuffed. He was arrested on the spot. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt. Not Andrew, not Ben, and not even the elderly woman. But to this day, we all wonder what would have happened if the guards or the police hadn't shown up in time. Or worse, if that bus full of people had cracked. Hello, my name is Brit. I'm a woman from Norway, and this is a true story that happened to me a long time ago. I was 18 at the time, and I had just moved in with my partner Alex. We loved going out exploring to the mall, cafes, anywhere at all during the day. But one day, we decided to come home a little earlier than usual. And looking back, I'm really glad we did. When we got home, I locked the door. Or at least I thought I did. You see, I'm hard of hearing, and sometimes I forget to check if I've actually locked the door, especially since I'm always the one who walks in last. That day, we didn't think much of it. We just sat down to watch TV like usual until we heard loud screaming. It was coming from our neighbors. She lived in the apartment right next to us, and we were used to hearing her yelling at odd hours, especially in the middle of the night. Doors slamming, things breaking, but this time it was during the day. Alex heard footsteps in the hallway, and then suddenly he turned the TV off. We both went quiet, and that's when we heard it. Someone was at our front door, stabbing it over and over again. We froze. Alex looked at me and whispered, "Oh no, I might have forgotten to lock it." My heart dropped. I crept slowly to the door and checked. It was locked, thank God. Then came the screaming, "Let me in. Open the door." She was screaming, swearing, stabbing the door again and again. We could hear the metal scraping as she carved X's into the wood. She even went to another neighbor's door. She sounded furious through the locked door, and she was determined to get inside. She started kicking the door, slamming her body against it, and shouting, "Open the door." I told Alex frantically, "Call the police now." He did, and he told the operator, "Our neighbor is trying to break in. She's stabbing the door. Please send help." The operator asked if we could see anything. "Do you have a peephole or window to look through?" We said no, but we told her, "It has to be a knife or some sharp weapon. She's hitting the door hard." I started crying while Alex stayed on the line. We waited and waited, and then we heard the police sirens in the distance getting closer and closer. They caught her right outside our door, still holding the knife. She didn't even run. They took her into custody immediately. Later, we found out she was evicted and placed into rehabilitation, and we never saw her again. My name is Sparsh. This incident happened when I was 15 years old. My parents were out of town on vacation celebrating their anniversary. They wanted me to come with them, but I had exams the following week. So, I stayed back home alone. My mom, being the protective person she is, asked her friend from society to send her son Sahil to stay with me. Sahil was 18 years old. I also have an older brother who was 23 at the time, but he was working in a different state. He was planning to come home in a few days. The first 3 days went by smoothly. Sahil and I had a lot of fun. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then came the night before my brother's return. He told me he'd be arriving early in the morning around 4 a.m. So I thought, why not just stay up all night and study? Since I didn't want any distractions, I told Sahil not to stay over that night. After dinner, I got comfortable and started studying. It was 10 p.m. Everything was fine. I kept my head in the books for another few hours until around 2:20 or 2:25 a.m. I suddenly heard a loud crash coming from the second floor. It sounded like something very heavy had fallen. At first, I tried to brush it off as my imagination, but then I heard footsteps. My heart dropped. I froze for a moment trying to process what I just heard. Now, the second floor of my house isn't connected to the first floor. There's no interior staircase. That meant whoever or whatever was up there didn't come from inside. It must have entered through the terrace or balcony. Panicked, I turned the TV on full volume and started talking loudly to myself, trying to make it seem like I wasn't alone. I kept that act going for a whole hour. Then I grabbed a bat double locked to the main door and pushed a sofa in front of it. I sat there bat in hand, terrified. I don't even remember falling asleep. Next thing I knew, the doorbell rang. I jolted awake. It was morning and that had to be my brother. Still nervous, I opened the door just a crack to check. And thankfully, it was him. I told him everything and together we went upstairs to check, and what we saw shook me to my core. The entire second floor was a mess. Clothes and belongings were scattered everywhere. But the worst part, there was a knife on the floor. A knife, one none of us recognized, lay on the floor. It looked like the intruder had stumbled, dropped it, and bolted. We immediately called the police. They combed through the area but found no other evidence. Still, they took the knife in for fingerprint analysis. A month later, a robbery and murder shook our neighborhood. The police believed it was the same individual, and that he was still out there. After that night, everyone in our neighborhood, including us, installed CCTV cameras in and around their homes. Our society now has 2 full-time security guards patrolling day and night. But even with all those precautions, I still get chills when I think about what happened. Because if I had gone to bed early, like I usually do, I honestly don't know if I'd still be here to tell this story.